Do you know that guy?
So I'm not going to sugarcoat this. This is me drinking coffee in the morning. No, I'm not a Stuart Flanagan with 10,000 subscribers and endorsements coming out the yin-yang from several groups consisting of vendors, Patreons, and other generally interested folk. No, I don't have a Patreon channel, so yes, I am super limited in my budget. I'm just a 30-year-old dude and living in the middle of nowhere, Vermont. You know, just a normal, proud citizen of the United States of America, and I'm just doing my damnedest to deliver the better quality video to you, my subscriber base, and fellow water-cooled Triumph Bonneville owners. So let's get started. So here it is, my trusty, tried and true 2018 Triumph Bonneville, coming up to the 25,000 mile mark. Now I say coming up, for I will likely breach that number within the week. You see, I live in Vermont. We have winter, or white hell as I call it, for roughly 4 to 6 months a year. I only get to ride 8 solid months max, if I'm really lucky. And in that time, I generally ride around 30,000 miles. So 8 months, or 240 days, I cover roughly 30,000. Which means I must ride on average 240 miles a day. So let's take a little fun fact here. If I go at 50 miles per hour average, which is my average speed, I'll plant my ass in my saddle for 28 consecutive days a year. Or that's 672 hours in a row. Or if you're watching a very popular and very copyrighted Italian mobster movie, that's 228 times of watching it in a row. So this means I put a lot of hard miles on my T120. And even as the video airs, this current odometer reading I'm showing you right now on my T120's clock is already behind the times. So, at this state of time of creating this video, my current mileage is at 24,141. Not bad, considering I'm still a month out from owning the bike for one complete trip around our star. So with that in mind, I ride a lot. I ride on average 240 miles a day, but realistically it's closer to 100 miles a day with big touring days. Okay, Jedz, great. You ride a lot. How does this relate to the upgraded suspension that we're all tuning in for, right? Well, okay. Well, let's just face it. The KYB rear suspension is just total garbage. Like, hot garbage that sat out for way too long in your house, and your wife told you to throw it out, and you're really reaping on that mistake. So let's take a look at these stock units I pulled off at 20,000 miles. Clear sign of seal seepage and leaking. Rust all over the spring, and the bushings look like they were out of a machine that was 10 years older than it should be. I mean, I've pulled better looking units off parts bikes. So you can tell the suspension is a very clear weak point of the bike. So I decided to reach out to the company Progressive Suspensions, for they made some awesome suspensions that work great on bikes of my past, primarily the Suzuki GS's. And they told me flat out, no, we don't make suspensions for your bike. We have nothing that's going to work for your bike. I'm really sorry. Then they followed up with a screenshot from their website, clearly showing the only 2018 Triumph they made rear shocks for was the Rocket 3. No go. Regardless of what they said, and I, being a novice bike builder, knew that most eye-to-eye suspensions is pretty much a universal component. I also knew my T120 was about as heavy as a fat Sportster when it's loaded, and that a Sportster's progressive rear suspension would be most ideal for my everyday riding and sport touring needs. So, I decided to go to a swap meet in Syracuse, New York. There's a vid on my channel if you're interested. And hunt out for progressive units that would not only increase my ride height, but increase my handling performance. So I found my set from a patched over fella, then I negotiated the price down to about 120 bucks, which I felt was fair and was happy because he felt it was fair. FYI, beer was really helpful in these negotiation tactics, so I recommend having that handy. I went with about 20mm in the increase from the eye-to-eye. Stock is around 350mm. So the new units are about 370mm. Not exact, because they're technically 15.75-inch eye-to-eye. We are working with an American motorcycle, setup, that is. The increase with the added stiffness of the shock has remedied the hardware grinding issue, and those pesky upshifts that occur while attacking hot left-handers under full load. As for the front end, I crafted some spacers that essentially raise the preload of the spring. I had to turn to my crude but effective machining techniques to make adapters for the front end. I used some pieces I found from parts bikes to create nice 20mm rise and preload adapters for inside the fork. You can buy such things for about 80 euros, or whatever the hell that is in American cash. My efforts resulted in about a 20mm rise in the front and creating a nice evenly planted rig with no awkward pitch to the front. So the other big thing to accompany the suspension is to upgrade to tubeless ZR radials. I'm currently running a Road 5 on the rear and a Road 4 GT in the front. The stock tube tires take away from handling performance. There is a difference, I can assure you. The last thing I did was shore up the front end by installing a 433mm Shindy front end stabilizer. I was noticing under load, as in engine load, while exiting turns, the front end would become very light and in turn cause a slight yet unsettling oscillation. The Shindy front end stabilizer has cured all those woes. Gone is the oscillation, and the sureness of the bike is now true and solid. The bike rides very much like my old FZ1 now, which is good for the bike offered me 80,000 miles of problem-free, great handling service, especially loaded. So the fact that T120 is on the same ballpark as an FZ1 is top-notch. In order to install, I had to order a front fork stabilizer mount, pretty much a universal unit that you can find anywhere on eBay. I did have to craft the engine guard mount for the other end of the stabilizer. So once again, back to my trusty, kinda crude but true machining techniques. The Shindy unit is of good quality and is also a rebuildable unit, and it's made in Japan, so just some more proven Japanese hardware to add to the bike. Because of the limited mounting locations on the T120, I found that I needed to use the 435mm unit with the 150mm stroke. It was the only option I could find that worked perfectly with a T120. So to wrap up, I've been on the hunt for a good standard universal motorcycle for quite a few years now, and I'm glad to have found my T120. The motor is perfect for general use, but the suspension was just lacking right from the crate. I found these upgrades to be a stellar improvement. Truth being that the new Speed Twin is going to deliver better out-of-the-box performance than, say, a stock T120. And if you're in the game to have a well-performing Bonneville out of the crate, then I would recommend that you look at getting a Speed Twin. Or even a Thruxton or Thruxton R if you're really going to go that extreme. But if you're like me and ride big miles, commuting / riding 100 miles a day, and you go on those occasional 3,000 to 5,000 mile weeks across the continent, and you're still actively looking to sport tour, then these suspension upgrades are pretty critical. I'm sure there are a few out there that are saying if you don't like the T120 as is, then go get a proper Japanese bike. Trust me, I considered it. But the fit and finish is lacking with all the Japanese offerings. The T120 is just a damn good do-it-all bike right out of the crate. For my riding style in my neck of the woods, the T120 is just a perfect match for all my needs. Stuart hit the nail on the head in saying the bike is just a gem to sit on and ride. The Triumph Bonneville T120 is perfectly set up for comfortable yet responsive geometry. I love this bike, for it's great not only to look at, but when you get on and ride, you're not able to get off the bike. It's really that good. The suspension upgrades I've done just refines the ride and makes the bike that much better and more enjoyable. The Bonneville T120 truly is a bike anyone can take and set up to make it to their own liking. It really is, by definition, what a true standard universal motorcycle is. So thank you all for tuning in. I hope you found this information informative. Please make sure you subscribe or hit the little bell icon if you want to hear some more material as it comes out. I hope to deliver some more of this premium quality media. I mean, as premium you're going to get from a little low Joe guy like me from YouTube. But hope you enjoyed it. Please be safe out there if you're riding. And if you're not riding, then get out and ride. Thanks for tuning in. best.